everyone, and welcome to the Student Perspective Talk. We typically give this during our interview weekends, and because of the issues that have come about due to COVID this year, we were hoping to still give you as much of the experience of interviewing as queens as possible. So we're just going to get started. So my name is Miriam Maes. I'm the vice president of the first year class, so the class of 2023 at Queen's University. I did my undergrad at the University of Toronto in neuroscience and physiology, and then I got in at a fourth year. But Alan's going to tell you his background as well, and you'll see that there is quite a variety in everyone's path to medicine, and that everyone in our class has a slightly different story about how they got here. So some of the things that I like to do, this is me hiking last summer in Kyrgyzstan. That's something I do in my spare time. But we're all involved typically in some way, and we're going to get back to this just about how unique our class is and how everyone has their own interests and ways to get involved.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Miriam, for the introduction. And so my name is Alan. I'm the first year class president here at Queen's for the 2023s. And so my background is a little different. I went to North Carolina in the US for my undergrad. I played some football there for a few years. And then I came here to Queen's to join as a master's student and then eventually transferred to the MD PhD program. And so I'm part of that cohort that combines research and medicine every year. And so, like Miriam said, we have quite different experiences, but I think that really speaks for our class and how different and diverse our backgrounds are. But again, in the end, what makes a difference is that we're all here together to learn medicine and grow. And so, one quick message I want to preface this presentation with is that it's quite easy for us to really try to sell Queens because we're obviously really quite passionate about the school, but I think the main message here is that wherever you choose to go is going to be the right choice for you, and that all we're trying to do here is share our experiences and share the reasons why we think Queens is quite special, and then we hope that this really helps you guys make a decision when it comes down to it. But we do also appreciate that some of us, including me, may only have one option in the end, and so hopefully this message really helps you get an appreciation for how amazing this school is and all the great opportunities that it's going to offer for your career and your training in medicine.
So the QMed family, that's actually what we call it. That's not just what we put in the slides. And we're going to talk about this pretty much on every single slide of this presentation, is that we have our family, we have a very small class size. So there's 108 students in our class. You will know everyone's name in the first 2 weeks. You honestly might know everyone's name by the end of orientation week. And that's because we have tons of collaboration. So we have different small groups. So the SGL is small group learning. The FSGL is facilitated small group learning. We're going to get into that just a little bit later. But there's just a lot of different group work that we do. So you work with 8 students throughout the semester, and that's throughout your classes. And then you'll also have a different clinical skills group. So that's a small group as well. And it's just another way to meet people. Another way that you get to know everyone is through the very, very vibrant social scene at Queen's. So we have lunchtime every day from 12:30 to 1:30. There's always events going on, always panels or discussion groups or clinical skills teaching, or just, things for fun that are also going on. There's intramural sports and whatnot. We also have mentorship groups. So those are headed by a physician, and every year students get added to a mentorship group. So there's students from every year in each mentorship group. And, our group, for instance, our doctor recently organized a wine tasting. We did a Zoom chat to keep up in the current situation, and we do trivia throughout the year, so it's just a really nice way to get to know physicians and also other students in other years. We also have socials with upper years, so the first years have a social with the third years at the beginning, which is a fun way to meet the people who interviewed you, and we also have interfaculty events, so we have the med law games and that kind of thing. In terms of athletics, I touched on it a little bit. There's intramural sports that there's about 1 or 2 teams from medicine for, I think, almost every sport. So there's volleyball, basketball, inner tube water polo, you name it. Medicine is representing at some point there. There's Med Games. That's where all the medical schools play sports against each other. We I will plug that Queens did win the tug of war contest this year, and then there's tons of extracurriculars that people are involved in. So there's interest groups. So that could be anything from there's a surgery interest group, an environmental advocacy interest group, a pediatrics interest group, and if the thing that you're interested in doesn't exist, you can make a group for it. There's also a medical variety night. That's kind of a talent show at the end of the year. There's QMed yoga. There's junior medics, where you go into the local schools and teach them about medicine. There's tons of ways to get involved that are both medically related and also not medically related, just for fun. So in this picture over here, this is the Wilderness Interest Group on their camping trip. This is some of us at homecoming sitting outside the student medical house. This is some people representing Queens at Med Games. And this is some members of our class who partook in a watercoloring class this year.
So in terms of curriculum, a really great thing about Queens is that it offers different avenues for us to learn in different settings. And so as you can see here, it's a nice balance between lectures and SGL, which are really small working groups. Then you have DILs, which are your online modules, and then Clin Skills, which is really our Doctor 101 sessions. I really like that because it's a nice variety in how we learn, and it really is balanced throughout the week. And it also provides great opportunities for us to work with different people in our class and really build these relationships, both professionally and kind of just these friendships that we can grow over time. And I think that's one of the really nice benefits of having a smaller class size is that when you get to work in those groups, you really form these friendships that are going to serve our clinical training moving forward, but also build these these bridge and these network that are going to be really strong and built on a foundation that's going back all the way to day one. Another point about our curriculum and the way it's designed is that we do have frequent assessments and kind of formative unit tests. And I think the idea behind that is really to kind of monitor our training over time and see if we really grasp the concepts that the administration is trying to teach us. And so it's a great opportunity for us to get feedback on our learning and also really provide some perspective and some feedback from our end of the spectrum, which is quite nice because you can see that this two-way lines of communication is allowing for their curriculum to improve constantly, and it really makes you feel that your voice is heard as a student, and that the goal of the administration is really to optimize your learning over time. So talking a little bit about our faculty and observerships, and again, just really emphasizing the fact that having a small class size has its advantage, especially in terms of the connection that we can have with faculty. They obviously are all super invested in our training, and they're all quite enthusiastic about teaching medicine. But I think having a small class size allows us to build these mentorship opportunities that wouldn't be available in a scenario where you have some larger class sizes. You can see here is a picture of our dean, trying to take a selfie, and he also actually invites all of his students to his house with his wife, and we have dinner with him, and we kind of share about our experiences. But I think that really speaks to the fact that Queen's Medicine and the faculty here is committed and is invested in our learning, both as physicians but also as members of the community. And I think that they really value that the fact that a learning experience is balanced between mentorship and both in the classroom and outside the classroom. That brings me to talk about observership, which are opportunities for us to really email any physician in the community and work with them. Personally, I've been a really big fan of that because it allowed me to kind of get in the hospital quite quickly and get my hands on some experiences that I've always wanted to see in terms of my future career. And then lastly, the first patient program, which is quite unique to Queens, where you're matched to a patient in the community along with one of your classmates, and then you're asked to kind of follow them over the year. And so you go to appointments with them, you go to talk with physicians with them, you kind of follow them throughout their life, and you get to understand and get their perspective on what it is to be a patient in this system, which I think is really quite important for us to understand and appreciate as we grow as physicians, because one day we're going to be on the other side of of the wall. And I think that being able to understand where these people come from and then what they have to go through is going to make us really special and be and better collaborators and advocate for our patients.
So just talking about a week in the life of a medical student, this is one of our heavier weeks. I'll start out by saying that not every single week looks like this. Um, but you'll see, I just wanted to point out a couple things here. So as I mentioned before, you can see that we have every day we have lunch, and that's 12:30 to 1:30, and that's at the same time as the second years. So that's when we have a lot of different things going on, including interest group talks and that kind of thing, but also as an opportunity to just, sit with your friends, debrief, eat your lunch, enjoy. The couple other things that I was going to point out is, so we have the afternoon, we had this FSGL. So facilitated SGLs, you get together with your group of 8 students that you work with all the time. And then you also have a physician who's in the room and you work through cases together. So for instance, this week we were working on a case of a woman with osteoporosis, and the mentor kind of makes sure that you're going down the right track and are looking at the right resources. And it's just another way to get to know faculty really well and intimately, which I think is a really unique opportunity at Queen's. This was just an exam viewing, which was optional, so it doesn't really count. Then you can see we have tons of SGLs as well as, so the SGLs are small group learning. So that's where you'll be in a lecture, and they'll give you a couple points, and then they'll bring up a case, and you'll have some time to work with your group of 8 through that case, and then you'll come back together as a class. We also have DILs. So DILs are directed independent learning. And those are online modules, so that's self-directed. The other things I wanted to point out here was the PPP. So that is when that day we worked through myeloproliferative disorders for an hour, and then the second hour of class, the physician brought in one of their patients that had been diagnosed with that for them to speak about their perspective of having that diagnosis and what it was like to go through that diagnosis. And I think a big thing about this is that you're going to remember a lot more about an illness when it becomes personal and when you can actually, put a face to it and like understand it from a human perspective. So I think that those are really valuable. And then you'll see Thursday afternoons, we have our clinical skills. So Queen's actually starts clinical skills really early. We were working with standardized patients by the 3rd week of school, practicing taking histories. By the end of the first semester, we learn all of the basic exams. So that's the cardio exam, the respiratory exam, the neuro exam, and what have you. And then the second semester or first year, we focus on these more specialized exams. So you can see that Thursday afternoon, we were doing the newborn assessment. So we went into KGH, which is one street away from the medical building, like 5 steps pretty much. And we went into the NICU and we learned how to, what do bowel sounds sound like in an infant? How do you do a cardio exam on an 8-day-old child in the NICU? And then we were also doing our adolescent interview. So we had standardized patients that were 16 or so, and we were learning how to interview them. And the final thing that I wanted to point out is that we also have history of medicine lectures throughout the year given by Jenna Healy, who's a Yale-trained historian. I think it was actually in the next week. So this is one of our lighter weeks. I wanted to show this as well because not all our weeks are insane. But maybe we don't have a history lecture. Oh, we do. Here we have our history of ethics lecture. So that's just one way that we focus on history. At Queen's, they really focus on emphasizing the history of medicine. And I think both what we've done well and what we've done poorly throughout the years in order to improve on that in the future. So yeah, this is one of our lighter weeks. We did have our bell ringer. That was our test in first semester, and we were doing our cardiovascular exam that week. But as you can see, not every single week is crazy, and there's lots of time to do things. Typically what we have is we have 2 afternoons minimum off. So like 2 half days a week, which is good. And it's usually Friday afternoons, which is nice in case you want to go home for the weekend or whatnot. So wellness at Queen's, there is a huge emphasis on wellness. We have a counselor dedicated for medical students, which I know that a lot of people have found very useful. There's a wellness committee. So the wellness committee put together we had a spinning class for free for medical students that was actually put on. One of the MD PhD students at Queen's is also a spin instructor, which blows my mind. This was our wellness lunch, which was a salad competition, I believe. This was some of our friends celebrating the Golden Lobe ceremony, which was the screening of our interview video, which you should watch if you haven't yet. It's on YouTube. And this is some of us at orientation week. And this is the members of our medical house, which is a social club that most of us partake in. Even if you're not a member, you're still welcome to go and hang out there. So yeah, there is a huge emphasis, and once a semester or once a year, we are actually have these mandatory appointments with the learner wellness just to check in to make sure that we're okay financially and socially and academically, so that kind of none of us fall through the cracks, and they help us as we go. So if you have any questions at any time, I know that this interview cycle has been very different and very strange, and that the interview process in general is very demanding, and that this year has been ever more so. So if you have any questions, you can shoot me an email at qmedinterviews@gmail.com. I'll answer it. If you have a question I can't answer, I'll make sure to get you in touch with the person that can answer it. So don't be shy, and all the best.